What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen, and this is my preview for Night 2 of both King and Queen of the Ring, taking place this Friday on SmackDown. It's been a pretty good tournament thus far, so before I get into this preview of Night 2, I want to discuss what took place in Round 1 on Monday Night Raw this week. We were supposed to get 8 matches. We found out at the top of the broadcast that 2 of those matches, both one for the women and the men, would be taking place later this weekend at a live event to determine the winner. And I said that's fine by me because you know what? 8 matches, especially for this tournament, is a lot to squeak out on TV, not to mention all the other segments and matches they had lined up. And so that made total sense. The 2 matches that were moved to later this week or this weekend were both members of the LWO. So we have Rey Mysterio going up against Kofi Kingston, and we have former Queen of the Ring or Queen's Crown winner Zelina Vega going up against the Queen of Spades, Shayna Baszler, sometime again later this week or weekend, to determine those 2 winners. So prior to Monday Night Raw, we found out via social media that Raw GM Adam Pearce announced that unfortunately Drew McIntyre was not medically cleared and that Finn Balor would still be in the tournament. He would have to find a replacement for Drew McIntyre, and that Drew McIntyre was completely removed from this tournament. So that was a bummer for a lot of people. As I spoke on for the preview, that was a lot of people's winner, not just making it to the final, but actually winning the whole thing. And I can't argue that. You know, for me personally, I see Gunther or Ilya Dragunov coming out of Raw, potentially winning the whole thing, but Drew McIntyre was an obvious favorite in the top 3 as well, so that was definitely a bummer. So shortly thereafter, we found out that main event Jey Uso would be filling in for Drew McIntyre up against Judgment Day's Finn Balor, and the funny thing is when Monday Night Raw opened up, Judgment Day made their way out. Finn Balor was kind of braggadocious, saying that he gets a bye through the first round since Drew's unable to compete. And so with that being said, that he would be advancing. Now look, if you get your WWE emails and so on, you would know that at least an hour and a half prior to Monday Night Raw, a replacement was made for Drew McIntyre, and that, in fact, Finn Balor would not be getting a bye in the first round. And so I don't know where the surprise came from. A lot of fans were surprised in the arena, and hey, good for them. But any of those that subscribe to WWE or check your emails, we all knew around 6:30 Eastern Time that main event Jey Uso was the new opponent for Finn Balor. And so we got that match early on. It was a good match where Jey Uso ended up getting the victory. And so that was one of the matches that took place on Monday night. Now, as far as the rest of the matches are concerned for the men, I'll just go through all the men's now, and then we'll get to the women's matches following that. We had a very good matchup with Ricochet going one-on-one with Ilya Dragunov. I don't think there was any surprise there. Both of these men brought it. These are just great staples of pro wrestling in general, not just WWE. I mean, obviously, it could be argued that Ricochet is very underutilized or underappreciated, I guess you could say, even though he's a former U.S. champion and Intercontinental champion on the main roster, former North American champion on NXT, although a lot of people would like to see more done with him, even though he won this recent speed tournament that they had on X, and he's the speed champion, and post-match, you know, he lost. Ilya Dragunov advanced, as I assumed he would. And Ricochet was very displeased, not with his efforts, but unfortunately coming up short, not getting it done when it counts on Raw, on SmackDown, at a pay-per-view, you name it. So I don't know if it's necessarily leading to Ricochet turning heel, but it seems like we're definitely going to get a change of perspective, change of character for him going forward. So far we have Jey Uso, we have Ilya Dragunov advancing in this tournament, and we had 2 more matches for the men's, but like I mentioned at the top of the show, Kofi Kingston, Rey Mysterio taking place later in the week, so we only had 1 men's match left to take place here, and that ended up being the main event for Monday Night Raw. And that was the Ring General Gunther vs. Sheamus, Part 3. This was absolutely brutal, as anticipated, as expected. Any Gunther match is, really. Same goes for Sheamus. You know, they work very stiff. It's not a bad thing. It's just, you know, you're going to get it. You're going to get handprints left all over you, and that's exactly what happened. On the front of Sheamus, on the back of Sheamus, you know, Gunther as well. He didn't get off easy either. Gunther did get the victory here. Again, as I suspected would take place and happen, one of my favorites to win the whole thing. But, man, Sheamus put on social media following the match, just covered with red marks on his chest, on his back, and basically saying there will be no Part 4. That's it, you know. So, fantastic match. They always bring it. They always deliver. Was very happy with how the men's tournament went on Monday night. Now let's jump on over here to the women's side of things. As I mentioned, the one match out of these 4 that will take place later on the week didn't take place on Raw with Shayna Baszler versus Zelina Vega. And so let's start off here with Io Sky versus Natalya. This was a very good match. Natalya, say what you want about her, but she really delivers time and time again. I mean, she is a veteran in WWE. She's been with them for a very long time, dating back to their Divas era. I want to say Natalya and Naomi are the only two that are still here from that era. Obviously, Naomi returned in January at the Royal Rumble. Natalya's been there ever since. And, those two, they're really the foundation of this women's division. So she does the damn thing. Great match. Did a fantastic job. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Io Sky got the victory. She advances. We got to see Zoe Stark versus Ivy Nile. This match was all right. They did their thing. They let them have some time out there, unlike the Queen's Crown tournament 2.5, 3 years ago. All those matches, I want to say all those matches were like under 2.5 minutes, with the exception of the final in Saudi Arabia, 2.5, 3 minutes. You would think that was the speed tournament that they're running on X now these days. But they're giving the women time, regardless. So, good match. Zoe Stark got the win. She advances. And the third and final match for the women that took place. Now, there was a lot of changes here, right? We found out that, two of these matches we wouldn't be getting on Raw later in the week or weekend. We would find out the winner there. Drew McIntyre was replaced due to injury, not being medically cleared. He was replaced by Jey Uso. And we also come to find out early on in the show when Damage Control made their way out and Dakota Kai got on the mic, saying that she would be replacing the injured Asuka in the matchup for the first round versus Lyra Valkyria. So we had Lyra Valkyria versus Dakota Kai on her birthday. Unfortunately, wasn't much of a birthday gift or reason to celebrate other than getting the match itself on Monday Night Raw because Lyra Valkyria got the win here. Decent match. Very nice debut for Lyra Valkyria. And as expected, she will advance in this tournament. So now, taking a look at these brackets for Monday Night Raw for the men for this King of the Ring tournament. The second round is looking like Gunther will face the winner of Kofi Kingston versus Rey Mysterio. And then we have Ilya Dragunov versus main event Jey Uso. And so it's shaping up to be pretty damn good. Very curious to see how this plays out. Like I said, I still think it's going to be Gunther versus Ilya Dragunov in the final for Monday Night Raw. And it's going to be great. It's going to be, if you've never seen these two go at it in NXT UK or NXT, you could go back and check it out on Peacock or just wait and see this match take place in the next week or two. You're definitely in for a treat. And for the women of Monday Night Raw, the Queen of the Ring tournament, we have to wait and see who's going to come out of the Shayna Baszler, Zelina Vega match. And whoever comes out of that one in the second round will have Io Sky waiting for them. And the other matchup for the second round for the women on Monday Night Raw, we have Lyra Valkyria versus Zoe Stark. And so we've got a lot to look forward to. We really do. Now, before I jump over to Friday Night SmackDown and check out the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments round 1 coming up this Friday, I want to mention the two matches that were made official as soon as Raw went off air. For King of the Ring, or King and Queen of the Ring, shall I say, we have the WWE Women's World Champion Becky Lynch putting her title on the line against Liv Morgan and her revenge tour. Will she get it done? I know she's going to win the title at some point this spring or summer. I don't know if it's going to be, at this event in a couple of weeks, but I do see it happening. If not now, maybe a follow-up, possibly at Clash of the Castle or maybe Money in the Bank, something like that. So that's going to be a good one. And the other match that was made official is a triple threat match for Sami Zayn's Intercontinental Championship. We have Big Bronson Reed versus, obviously, Sami Zayn versus Chad Gable. So it's going to be a good one. And early prediction, I think Sami Zayn will retain. I really do. I mean, if he does drop, I don't think it is to Chad Gable. I think they would then put the title on the likes of a Bronson Reed. But we'll see. Looking forward to this show already. Those are the only two matches that have been made official as of this very moment, outside of obviously finding out we're going to have the King of the Ring tournament final take place there, as well as the Queen of the Ring tournament final take place. So guess you could say 4 matches are made official, and I guess we could expect to see Cody Rhodes defend his title there, maybe against the likes of AJ Styles again, and the United States Championship, Logan Paul, being that he was on, or is on the poster for this event, probably defending his title as well, and possibly the Women's Tag Team Champions defending as well. Also, we're on the poster, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. So Friday Night SmackDown, round 1 of the Queen of the Ring tournament. We have 4 matches that were advertised, and we see that we have Tiffany Stratton going up against Blair Davenport. I say we're going to see Tiffany Stratton advance there. They're really pushing her big time, obviously. She was in the Elimination Chamber this year. First, she debuted on the main roster at the Royal Rumble. Then she was in Perth, Australia, again in the Elimination Chamber. And of course, most recently, last weekend, Backlash in France in that triple threat for the WWE Women's Championship alongside Naomi and Bayley. So Tiffany Stratton, again, whether she wins this tournament or not, well on her way, very popular, probably number one candidate to win the Women's Money in the Bank briefcase this summer. So I'm definitely going with Tiffany Stratton over Blair Davenport. Next up, we have Nia Jax going one-on-one with Piper Niven. Both former members of Monday Night Raw making their way to SmackDown. I see Nia Jax advancing here. Love Piper Niven, but just based upon booking, I certainly see Nia Jax getting the upper hand here. Third match for the women's, for the Queen of the Ring tournament, shall I say, we have Chelsea Green and Indi Hartwell. Again, two women making their way from Raw to SmackDown. Now, this one's a tough one for me. It really is, because more times than not in the recent past, although, they're both very good, they are, but based upon booking, they've caught a fair amount of L's. They've been losing quite a bit here and there, so it's hard to say. Are they going to give Indi the upper hand? Are they going to finally let Chelsea do her thing, give her some momentum, especially in a singles capacity? They've both been booked in tag teams most of their time on Monday Night Raw the past year. Indi with Candice, Chelsea with Piper, so it's going to be very interesting here. It's hard making this decision, but I got to make one. Perhaps I'm going to go with Chelsea Green. I'm going to go with Chelsea Green getting the win here. Again, it could go either way. This one, it really could. But this should be a good match. And then the fourth and final Queen of the Ring match we have for Friday Night SmackDown. And again, they might do what Monday Night Raw did. It would only make sense if they were only able to get 6 of those 8 matches on Monday Night Raw, a 3-hour show. I mean, Friday Night SmackDown's only 2 hours, so I expect at least 2 of these 8 matches between the men and women that are scheduled to possibly take place over the weekend or maybe early next week or something like that. But we have Naomi going one-on-one with Candice LeRae. I fully anticipate seeing Naomi get the win here. Those are the 4 women's matches we have to look forward to. As far as the men are concerned on Friday Night SmackDown for the first round of the King of the Ring tournament, we have AJ Styles going one-on-one with Randy Orton. This one's a tough one. They both suffered defeats at Backlash. They both, in their mid to late 40s. That's no knock against them. They both look great. They're doing great. But they're both coming off of losses, right? AJ Styles lost to Cody Rhodes. Randy Orton, KO, they had lost in their tag team matchup against, not granted, there was interference, Tama, Tonga, and Solo Sikoa. Great match, great opener, by the way, too, for Backlash. That being said, this is also a very difficult one for me, much like it was difficult for me to figure out who's going to win in the women's match between Chelsea and Indi Hartwell. I'm going to give Randy Orton the slight edge. Again, not by much. I think Orton advances over Styles, but just as easily, it could be the other way around. In this next matchup, we have Baron Corbin making his way back to the main roster from NXT. Had a pretty good run this past year, or the past several months, especially alongside Braun Breaker. They were NXT tag champs. Hopefully he could continue to take that momentum from NXT to SmackDown. So again, as much as he may have some momentum or do good on SmackDown, it won't be in this tournament. I'll tell you that much. He's a former King of the Ring winner from, 2019, 2020, something like that. And Carmelo Hayes will defeat Baron Corbin, of course. The next matchup we have, the third matchup for the King of the Ring tournament, we have LA Knight versus Santos Escobar. Now look, Santos Escobar could desperately use this victory. I'm kind of pulling for him. I hope he wins. I like LA Knight, but I don't see Escobar getting the win over a guy who's been getting a significant push himself. LA Knight's going to get the win here, simply put. I'd be shocked if Escobar wins, but certainly wouldn't be upset about it. And the fourth and final match here we have for the King of the Ring tournament, round 1, we have Bobby Lashley versus Tama Tonga. This is very interesting. I could easily see Bobby Lashley get the win here, but I don't necessarily see that happening. I don't. I see the vicious Tama Tonga, who debuted about a month ago, newest member of the Bloodline, brought on by Solo Sikoa, and I just don't see him losing. Even though Bobby Lashley's a much bigger dude, I don't see him getting the win here. I see Tama Tonga bringing some semblance of success to, getting this victory into the Bloodline, bringing back, what's it look like him coming to the Bloodline barely a month ago and then losing in the first round of this tournament? Solo Sikoa and company would not be thrilled about that. So I think he at least, I don't know how much further he's going to make it in this tournament, but I could see Tama Tonga at least getting past round 1. So I'm going to take Tama Tonga over Bobby Lashley. And again, that is the entirety of round 1 for SmackDown, both the men and the women, shaping up to be a pretty good. I was really intrigued with this men's card. As much as I thought the men's on Raw was amazing, and it was, don't get me wrong, thought they did a very good job with this men's. Styles and Orton, LA Knight and Escobar, Lashley and Tonga. Even a lot of people say what they want about Baron Corbin. He could go. And Carmelo Hayes, it's a formidable opponent to put against Carmelo Hayes because, of course, Carmelo's going to get the victory. One of the newest signees are coming up from the draft from NXT to SmackDown. Of course, they're going to push Carmelo Hayes to the moon, much like they will with Tiffany Stratton on the women's side for SmackDown. So that sums up round one for SmackDown's King and Queen of the Ring. And it's shaping up to be a good tournament. Really excited for this whole thing to take place, each and every match, each and every week over the next couple of weeks until May 25th when we get to see the final for the men and the women in Saudi Arabia. I'm so glad they brought this tournament back. It feels meaningful. It feels important. They're not rushing it. They're taking their time. Again, I'm glad they weren't able to get all the matches in on Raw. They probably won't be able to get all the matches in on SmackDown because they're giving them time. They easily could have, pushed all 8 on there and had a bunch of 3, 4, 5-minute matches, but that's not the case. They're giving these men and women time to showcase their skills. A good amount of these people, whether they're new to the brand or not, or just don't get the TV time that they should, they're giving them a chance to display their skills, to showcase themselves, even if it's in a losing effort. It's like, all right, I'm going to keep my eye on that one. They may have a potential run in them, whether it's singles, tag, who knows. So that just about sums things up here for this episode, folks. For the preview for round one for SmackDown's King and Queen of the Ring. Gave you a little review as well in here from Monday Night Raw's King and Queen of the Ring, both round one. So looking forward to the continued momentum of this tournament for these men and women. Again, happy for them and enjoying this. I really enjoyed tuning in lately, watching Raw and SmackDown under this Triple H new era, and especially people getting the time, feeling important, not looking ridiculous out there. And so that's that. So as always, I thank you for tuning in to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.